Okay, well, today, let's see here. Today we get to turn our attention to, we spent all of this time on the exegetical process, that is the studying the word, studying the passage. And today I want to focus attention on actually, sorry, let me do this instead. Okay, there we go. Focus our attention on how do we prepare to communicate that to our hearers. All right, we've been listening to and trying to understand the original author and what he was saying to his audience, to his hearers. And so that next step is to turn our attention now to taking his message and how he applied it to his hearers and turning towards our hearers, whether it is ourselves, whether it is a Bible study class, or whether we are teaching a congregation, preaching a sermon. And so we've been looking at, this is sort of a picture of the whole process. The top part here, the focus is going from the word to the exegetical idea. That is, all of these steps, I think there were 8 or 9 steps, have been focused on understanding what the author meant. And so that brings us to his exegetical idea. That is, what is his main point? And then from there, we want to now move towards bringing that understanding to the people we are teaching, to those that we are addressing. And so once we've obtained the author's idea, his main point, we talked about this the last few weeks, the what, why, and the how. That is the subject of the text, the context of the text, and the outline of the text. Once we understand that, we then want to turn our attention to our hearers. And the first step in doing that is identifying the timeless truths. Again, those are the doctrinal truths upon which the original author based his application. And those timeless truths apply to any person at any time, in any place, in any situation. And so those timeless truths are what we see in the passage that apply across time and space. And so we identify those, and then that step, I called it a reflection or meditation, where it's important that we spend some time thinking about how the passage then applies to us, and meditating on how it should affect our own lives, praying for God to do a work in our own hearts, and then also to do a work in the hearts of those that we will be teaching the passage to. And so it's important to stop before you dive into putting the sermon together, to spend time allowing the Lord, allowing his Spirit to do a work upon our own hearts as we are studying the passage. We never want to be like a doctor who only prescribes medication but doesn't take it himself. So it's important to be kind of like you go see a doctor and he tells you not to eat sugar and unhealthy food, and the doctor weighs 200 kilograms. I mean, that would be kind of the doctor needs to follow his own advice as well as giving it to us. And so we don't want to be like a fat doctor, right? We want to be those who are also applying the word in our own lives. And of course, that is a work of the Spirit. That's why we need to meditate, to pray. We should be praying through the whole process, but especially before we begin to do the sermon, so that you don't get into a habit of, a lot of times we can get into a habit of just thinking about what other people need and focusing on them, forgetting that we are also sheep who need to be shepherded by the word of God. And so this step of meditation, I think, is very important and often neglected one. And so I just want to again encourage you guys before preparing any specific message to someone else is to prepare that message for your own hearts as we consider that. And so that step of meditation really to me is sort of the last step before then you go into preparing the sermon itself. And so what I want to do, and we talked about that I think at the end of the last unit if I remember right, is now, so we've done everything, all of the steps up to this point now where we're ready to begin to put the sermon together. And what the first step to do that is to come up with the homiletical, I'll call it homiletical idea and outline. All right, we got the exegetical idea, that is the author's main point. Now we want to, from that, come up with the homiletical idea of the passage. That is the main thought that we want to communicate based upon the text. And really that's the first and most important step in preparing for a sermon or a message, is to identify, okay, what is the main point you're going to communicate to your hearers, and how do you outline that point? That has to be important, but the focus is the main point of the sermon. It's called the homiletical idea. Some people call it the propositional statement. Chappelle calls it the fallen condition focus, the sermon point, the big idea. There's a lot of different terms that are used for this, but basically it's just a summary of your message in a clear, accurate, short statement that again is based upon the text and the timeless truths from that passage, but it applies to your hearers. And so the development of the sermon again must start there with the sermon concept, the homiletical idea. Okay, until you can state clearly what is the homiletical idea of your sermon, what is the main point, you need to be able to say that in a clear, short, memorable statement. If you don't have that statement, you're not ready to go into writing the sermon or putting the sermon together. You've got to know, where are you headed? It's been said, right, that if you don't, what's that phrase that's mentioned? If you don't have a target, you'll hit it every time. Meaning that if you don't have a thing that you're shooting at, you're going to you're never going to hit it. So we want to make sure that people understand what is the main focus of the sermon. So you need to be able to put that together. I like how one pastor, John Jowett, he expressed it this way when he was talking about this homiletical idea or sermon main point. He said that the preacher is not ready to preach his sermon until this. I'm going to ask Norman if you could read this for us.
Okay. He can express its theme in a short, pregnant sense as clear as crystal. I find the gating of that sentence is the hardest, the most exacting, and the most fruitful labor in my study. I do not think any sermon ought to be preached or even written until that sentence has emerged clear and lucid as the cloudless morning.
All right, thank you. So yeah, he's saying we need to be able to, we're not ready to preach or teach until we can summarize or focus the message into a short, he calls it pregnant sentence, meaning one that is full of meaning and that is clear. Pastor John MacArthur said something very similar. Tangjin, can you read this one for us?
First of all, make sure that every expository message has a single theme that is crystal clear so that your people know exactly what you're saying, how you have supported it, and how it is applied to their life. The thing that kills people in what is sometimes called expository preaching is randomly meandering through a passage.
Okay, thank you. So notice from these two, or let me put these quotes close to each other. I highlighted something that both of these men pointed out, and that is, you'll notice, the importance of being clear and having a single theme or focus. Okay, again, it's based upon the original author, but it is something that you have, as you studied the passage, as you've considered everything in the text, and as you want to communicate that to your hearers, you need to be able to come up with, summarize, what is the focus, what is my homiletical idea, what is that single theme or statement that I am making through this message. All right, the people, if you don't have that, you really don't have a target. If you don't have that, then you really, your people won't see your target. They'll maybe grab something out of your message, maybe an illustration or some particular statement that you make, but you want to make sure they understand the main point of it, right? What is the focus of this text? What is the author trying to say here? And how does it apply? And so I think these two statements together really communicate the importance of, before you write out a message, before you put the sermon together, you have to be able to say, okay, here's my main point. Here's the thing I want to focus attention on. And again, I call that the homiletical idea, just to match or parallel the, right, the author, he has the exegetical idea, that is the author's main point, okay? Again, as we express in the what and the why. And so the preacher, I just call that, he needs to come up with a homiletical idea based upon the author's main point. So we call that the preacher's main point, or more specifically, the sermon main point, okay? That's what we're talking about here. Identifying a single theme, and as Jowett says, summarizing it in a short sentence that is clear. This is most important. I can sometimes it'll take me an hour or two as I think about it to come up with this. Now you may say, well, why do it take you that long? It should be easy to put together at this point. Well, here's why. Because the homiletical or idea, the key to it is that it be a single theme and crystal clear, but there are certain aspects, certain characteristics of a homiletical idea that make it effective. So I wanted to throw that question out to you guys to ask, what do you think would make for an effective homiletical idea, a helpful summary point, or what characteristics make up a good sermon main point? What do you guys think? Does anybody have any opinion on that?
Good exegesis.
Yeah, it must come from good exegesis, and that's why we spent a lot of time, almost a year, actually over a year now, right? We spent almost exactly a year just focused on that, the exegetical step. So it has to come from good exegesis from the author's main point. That is, it must be accurate, right? That's what we're talking about. Okay, good. What else makes for an effective homiletical idea?
A clear presentation of the truth to the audience according to the passage.
Okay, good. And the key word there is clear. All right, it must be clear. So it must be accurate. All right, it must rightly reflect what the author is saying, but it also needs to be clear.
Mm.
It's one thing if you understand it, that's good, that's important, but your people have to understand. I mean, right? If you're not clear, if you don't make it clear to them, then they're not helped. Maybe you have been helped from the passage, but if you can't explain it in a clear way, and this is why it's important to have a homiletical idea, a summary statement, and that statement has to be clear, must be understandable for your hearers. All right, good. Any other key characteristics you think that makes a good or effective homiletical idea? Anybody?
It has a purpose.
Must have a purpose. So basically mean applicational, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it should, we could say it this way, it should be directed to the hearers. All right. So instead of, for example, instead of saying something like Paul's motivation to missions, it should be your motivation to missions. All right, that's the difference between the exegetical idea and a homiletical idea, considering who's the audience. Okay, so yes, your motivation will come from Paul's motivation from this passage, but direct it to your hearers, or you say why you should be motivated to mission, or 3 motivations to missions, something like that. All right, good. So applicational, that is directed towards your hearers. All right, these are great. Any others, guys, come to your mind?
What about logical?
Uh,
I mean, convincing.
Convincing. Okay, yeah. Again, that'll be part of the directed to your hearers, as well as making sense. They should be able to, as you go through the text, see that so maybe we could say connected to the text in its context. Okay, and that'll connect us more to the outline of the passage, that the outline, the structure as we go through the text, it should make sense to your hearers. So these are good. So let me give you a few examples, and then we can just evaluate how effective these are. Here, let's do this. So let's evaluate. These are I just chose some example homiletical ideas just for us to evaluate. So here we have 3 characteristics of powerful prayer. What can make this a helpful homiletical idea? What are some features here? Maybe I should. Oh, go ahead, Joshua.
It lacks purpose.
Purpose. Just the. Okay, what can you expand on that?
Yeah, the title 3 characteristics of powerful prayer is sounds like a description of prayer, and describe the three characteristics, but we have to answer the question, so what? Yes, it's I mean, just remember what my professor of preaching said. So what? So what?
Yeah, and it's kind of implied in that word powerful, right? We can make it more explicit. 3 characteristics of prayer so that you will have powerful prayer or something like that. So we could, but in that word powerful, there is the implication of, you know, if you want your prayers to be powerful, here's 3 characteristics of that. So yeah, we could have added something like, so that you may pray with power. I don't know, something like that. But I think that word powerful sort of has some implication of a purpose. But yeah, that's a good point. That could be more explicit. What else is helpful about this homiletical idea? Anybody? What about by saying 3 characteristics? Do you think that is helpful for this main point? Or maybe let me ask it this way. In what ways could it be helpful to say like 3 characteristics? What do you think, Norman?
I'm thinking about something that when people ask me how do I pray, I will always tell them that it has, when you pray, it has got to be according to God's will. I always say it has got to align with the word of God. I don't know whether it applies here.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, depending on the passage, that may be one of the characteristics, you know, depending on the text that you're looking at. And I didn't give the text here because I'm just trying to give a few just examples of homiletical ideas. So in this case, you know, it could be the outline would help explain what those characteristics are. I think this is known as, by including the number of, this is basically telling you the number of points in your sermon, right? There's 3 characteristics. So today we're going to look at 3 characteristics of powerful prayer, so that you may pray with power according to God's will. But 3 characteristics kind of gives your hearers an idea, a direction. So they're going to be looking for how many characteristics, right? 3. Okay, so sometimes this is called what's called a plural noun proposition, in that it gives the number of points basically that you're going to describe in your message, and it makes it easier to follow. You know, if you just say, we're going to talk about prayer this morning. Well, what about prayer? You know, it helps to, if you say, I'm going to focus on 3 characteristics of powerful prayer. Well, that kind of tells you, okay, I know where he's headed here. He's going to show me from this passage three things about prayer that will make it powerful. That God shows us how we can have powerful prayer. So plural noun proposition can be very helpful in just giving your hearers a direction, like where you're headed. So they know that when you'll be able to make it clear. When the first characteristic is, it must be according to the will of God, just as Norman said. The second characteristic of powerful prayers is it must be consistent. And the third characteristic of powerful prayers, it must be fervent, or something like that. So it's easy to follow if you sort of give your hearers an idea of, you know, how many points you're going to be making as part of this part of your sermon. All right. All right, here's another example homiletical idea. Be content in Jesus, not in jewels. Okay, what can be Pastor Philip, I'll ask you on this one. With this particular homiletical idea, is there anything that is that we see here that's helpful with this particular one?
I think this idea focus that Jesus is the most valuable, or Jesus is more valuable than any jewels on earth.
Yeah, so it's clear here, right, that the focus is the value of Christ, right? Because we talk about jewels is mentioned. Anything else from this that is it directed? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and Jesus can give maybe satisfaction or something like that. Or Jesus is the source of our satisfaction or something like that.
Okay, good. Satisfaction. Would you say this homiletical idea is directed towards the hearers?
Yes.
Yeah, notice, be content. All right, that's an imperative. That's a command. That's a call to respond. Be content in Jesus, not in jewels. All right, and also too, I mean, look at it. This is a short. Remember, Jowett said to make it your homiletical idea short, pregnant sentence. He called it, that is clear. And so this is only what? How many words here? 7 words. This is something that if you repeat it throughout your message, could be remembered. Be content in Jesus, not in jewels. All right. Using J, a word that starts with J, right? Because we have Jesus, and then jewels sort of sounds like Jesus a little bit, right? So that makes it easier to remember. And that's something that's important, that we want our propositional statements, our homiletical idea to be memorable, right? Jesus and jewels. So sometimes using words that sort of match, maybe sound alike or are similar, can be helpful in that regard. And again, this is short. I'm a fan of having, shorter sermon main points, main point, because that's easier to remember. I mean, what do you want the people to leave with after you're done? What do you want them to know? All right, what's the main thing, the main point, the thing you want them to tomorrow to remember from pastor's sermon? Well, that's why make it your main point something that's memorable, because that is your focus, right? This is the main idea. I want my people, when they leave, or when I'm finished with this message, I want them to recognize they need to be content in Jesus, not, in Christ, not in things. So how can I help them remember that? That's the idea. Okay. All right. Now these homiletical ideas, they won't all contain every characteristic necessarily. That's our goal. But here I'm just trying to give you a few to give you some ideas. All right. How about this one? God wants faithfulness, not busyness. Let's see. Shulong, you want to comment on this one? How would you evaluate this particular homiletical idea? And really, what makes it effective or helpful? Again, think about how we described the characteristics before, right? It must be memorable. It must be directed to hearers. It must be accurate. It must be clear. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Okay, is talking about the character of faithfulness. Faithful. So, okay, it must be.
So maybe ask a few questions. We don't have the passage in front of us, so we cannot comment on if it's accurate or not. But is it directed to the hearer?
Yes, because it is a command.
Yeah, it says God wants. So that's an implied
Once.
expectation, right? Okay, how about is it memorable? Or could it be memorable?
Yes,
Yeah, we have the words faithfulness,
faithfulness.
and busyness. Not business, busyness. You know, those are similar in their same number of syllables. They both end with NESS, so that could help me remember it a little bit. You know, is it short so that it could be memorable? Right, we only have what, 5 words here, so that's pretty short. Again, we want people to leave with being able to remember what we're directing them towards as far as the main idea of the sermon. All right. Any other thoughts about, again, we don't have the passage that this is from. This is just sort of an example. So we can't comment on accuracy in this case, but that's the idea. Any other comments on this, Shulan?
Oh, okay. Is it biblical?
Is it what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Is it biblical?
Vertical, is that what you said?
No, I mean, it's a biblical.
Oh, biblical, sorry, yeah. Yeah, and that, since I didn't give you the passage, can't really comment on that part of it. I'll give you some examples of passages in a little bit. We'll look at that. But yeah, that would be a question we need to make sure. Is it accurate? Is it connected to the author's main point? All right. Okay, let me just give you guys one more. Just an example. 4 motivations to missions. And I already actually mentioned this one earlier. But here again, we have a plural noun, right? 4 motivations. So that helps the hearers to know that you're gonna be looking at 4 points. All right. And also there's an alliteration here again to make it memorable. We have motivations and missions. Okay, so 4 motivations to missions. So again, the idea is that it be memorable. And then again, you could put in so that you will carry out God's commission or something. You can add that if you want in your sermon, but really you want to repeat, you want your sermon idea to be something that you repeat throughout the sermon so that it keeps your hearers focused on what your main idea is. So here in this sermon, you want them to be motivated to mission. So you're going to give them 4 motivations from the passage. All right. So again, this is a plural noun. So it's telling them how many points to make. So all of these are just some examples to show you the different facets of a homiletical idea. And really, I think having it to be memorable is very important. And so to do that, it's got to be clear, it's got to be brief. And I think you can do things like having similar sounding words or something like that. and it's got to be directed. Now here, the directive is the motivations. That implies being directed to your hearers. But like I said, you could add something like, so that you will, you know, be on God's mission, maybe something like that. All right. Okay. So that's the homiletical idea. Now, the homiletical outline is basically explaining that idea. It's just like the author has structure, so too must your sermon have structure so that people can follow it. All right. Just like Joshua said earlier, is it logical? Does it make sense from the passage? Well, your outline is what's going to support that main point and essentially explain it. You could think of it as the how of your sermon. Like the author has a what, why, how. So he has a main idea, and then he has an outline that expresses that main idea. And in the same way, in our sermon, we need to have a how. All right. And really, as we think about the sermon, what makes for an effective sermon outline, again, it's going to be similar to what we were just talking about. It's going to be consistent. That is, it will be consistent with the homiletical idea. Okay, if you're going to talk about three characteristics of three characteristics of powerful prayer, then your outline is going to be 3 points that have to do with prayer. All right, it has to connect to your sermon main point. I've had several times where the preacher said, you know, we're going to talk today about 5 ways to obey the Lord in your job, and then he brings up 8 ways or 3 ways, not 5. So you want it to match. So it has to be consistent. So if your main point is 3 characteristics of powerful prayer, then each of those 3 points need to be connected to powerful prayer. So for example, if you have three characteristics, you know, good outline would be something like, it must be according to God's will. It must be fervent. It must be frequent. All right, something like that. And actually now notice we have 2 words that start with F. If you can think of a 3rd word that starts with F that means basically according to God's will, then that will help to be a memorable outline. And that's something, another characteristic is that sermon outline is that it's memorable. And that's why you'll see guys, you know, come up with these outlines that are, you know, all begin with, I don't know, is there a word that starts with F that could, it must be, I can't think of one right now. But that can be helpful. A helpful way to remember the sermon is to have words that sound similar, or have your points be, your outline points be structured similarly. All right. And that could be the idea of making your sermon points parallel. Okay. If you want to be memorable, make your sermon points parallel. That makes it easier to remember. Okay, so that's why let's see, must be, I wish I could think of a word that starts with F. Must be, I don't know, I'm just going to do this for, must be focused, must be fervent, it must be frequent. All right, again, needs to be based on the passage, so don't just come up with whatever you want. You need to base it upon what the text is. But my point here is simply that, notice there's only 1 word that's changed with these points, and they all begin with the letter F. That can help it be more easier to remember. Again, as long as these words, frequent, focused, and fervent, are all consistent with or connected to accurately to the passage. but try to make it parallel if you can. Try to make them concise. Again, just like the homiletical idea, you want it to be short and easy to repeat. All right, just like these. Notice each of these 4 words. It must be focused. It must be fervent. Or you could even make it shorter by saying, and more directed, pray with focus. Pray fervently. And pray frequently. See that? That's even shorter, 2 words, basically. And it's directed, which is the third thing. You want it to be directed to your hearers. And so actually it's better to do it this way. Pray with focus, pray fervently, pray frequently, because those are in the imperative. So that's directed toward your hearers. Now, it must be focused or it must be fervent. That implies that it's directed to your hearers, but you can make it even more focused or directed towards them by just giving it in the form of a command or an imperative. Or if you want to be less direct, you could say, you should pray with focus. Or you could say, we should pray fervently, but it's better to just say it directly. Pray with focus. Pray fervently, pray frequently, okay? And then of course, it must be accurate. Okay, don't force an unclear or inaccurate word. Sometimes when we're trying to find that word that'll match the other words, we'll force one in there that really isn't reflecting what the text is saying, just because we want the outline to match. So be careful with that. We don't want to mislead people by choosing a word that may make it memorable, but is not accurate. So watch out for that. Okay, but these are the 5. I think if you can remember these aspects that make for an effective sermon outline. Is it consistent with the homiletical idea? Again, if your homiletical idea is focused on the sovereignty of God, then your outline points should be connected to that theme. Is it parallel? Meaning, are each of the points in your outline, are they parallel with each other? So like these points where they sound similar to one another, same length, the same structure. Is it concise? Again, try to work towards brevity, which means you got to think for a while, so that the shorter you make a sentence or a statement, the more you have to think about the words to use so that it's still full of rich and meaning. Is it directed, again, to your hearers, as Joshua pointed out earlier? That is it applicational? So not only should your homiletical idea be applicational, but so should your outline points. And then is it accurate? So don't force an unclear, inaccurate word. Okay. Any questions on that? Would you add anything to this, or do you have any questions? Basically, pretty similar between what makes a homiletical idea effective and what makes an outline effective. But any comments or questions? Okay, why don't we do this? Let's look at a few passages that we have studied over the course of this module, and just look at some homiletical ideas and outlines and talk about those and see how effective they are. Okay, so the one we just covered, Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. We just spent the last few sessions on this passage. So let's go ahead and read it. I'll ask David if he could read this text, and then I'll give you a example of homiletical idea and outline and see what you guys think. David, if you're there, could you read this passage for us? Oh, maybe he is occupied right now. Kaptup, can you read it for us? Can you see the passage here, Hebrews 12? Can you read that for us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 to 2. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, laying aside every weight and the sin which so easily entangles us, let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're hopefully pretty familiar with this passage from our look at it the last few weeks. Now, here's an outline and a homiletical idea for this passage. Again, I just put these together, so they're not perfect, but I just wanted to give some examples and have you guys give input on this. So I had a homiletical ideas: run for Jesus and don't give up. Okay, so as we think about that and ask ourselves, is it directed? Is it clear? Is it accurate? Is it memorable? All right, so let's just ask these questions. Is it directed? That would be the first thing to evaluate this homiletical idea. That is it directed towards the hearers? All right, notice it's in the imperative form, right? So yes, it is, right? Note the imperatives. All right. Is it clear? Well, based upon this passage, I mean, is it clearly connected to the text? This idea of run with endurance. Let's see, let me actually do this. Going to. All right, there, let me do that. Okay, so let's consider that. Is it clear? That is, does it make sense? I don't know. To me it does, but maybe it doesn't to you. I don't know. Anybody want to comment on that? It's okay if it doesn't, it's not clear to you. Joshua, what do you think?
Yeah, run for Jesus. Yes, maybe can be more specific, because run for Jesus, that can mean different things, right? Like we're having election now, there are people running for all kinds of things. Yeah. So
How might you, how would you change that to make it more clear or connected to the text?
fulfill calling.
What's that?
From like fulfilling, fulfill, or fulfill your calling, and I mean, yeah, fulfill your calling with endurance or something.
Yeah, it's
along
not
that
so.
line.
I mean, we could repeat what the passage says, right? Run with endurance.
Yeah.
But
No.
but run what? What does that run mean? That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to. Yeah, fulfill your calling. So yeah, maybe there's a better way to explain in the homiletical idea what the idea means to run for Jesus, because right, the text he's talking about staying in the faith, right? Don't
Yeah.
turn away from the faith. Don't give up in your Christian walk. I don't know, something like that. Anybody got an idea to make this better?
Like running the race with endurance.
Yeah, that's what the
But not it's like imperative. It's become like now. I don't know.
so yeah, that could probably work on making this a little more clear. Again, you could say, just say what the author said in the passage, but that may not be clear because people may say, what does it mean to run? Well, that you explain that in your sermon, but so I was trying to think of a way to describe. Maybe it's something like don't quit. How about this? Don't quit the race of the Christian life. Is that better? I don't know. Something like that, maybe better. Yeah, run for Jesus. That yeah, when the elections, that would be misleading, maybe. All right. Yeah, this is a sermon about who to vote for. But you can see the challenge here, right? You want to have a sermon main point that is clear, that the hearers will understand. And a lot of times guys don't give much thought to this. They just put something quickly together. But again, we want to have something that's going to be directed towards your hearers, but also accurate. So it has to be from the passage, but it needs to be clear and memorable. That's the challenge. How do I make it clear so that it's understood and memorable? All right. And the same goes for the outline. All right. Now I had the word run in the outline because in my original idea I had the word run. So in the outline I said your motivation to run and your means to run. And means basically, right? That's the how. You remember the motivation is the why. From the block diagram of the passage, we saw those two main points. Two outline points. The motivation was, right, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses and having laid aside every encumbrance, and then the means was fixing our eyes on Jesus and his example. All right, but notice is let's see here. Is the outline consistent with the homiletical idea? And again, we'll just go with the original one for now. But notice, yes, the word run consists, so connects to both idea of running and the idea of endurance. And then is it parallel? So looking at the outline points, are they parallel with one another? That is, are they structured similarly? And notice your motivation to run, your means to run. So there's only one word that's different. Motivation in the first point, and in the second point, your means. And they both start with the letter M. So so that also can be helpful to make it memorable. Are they concise? They're 6 words, so I guess that's pretty concise. And then accurate. And then yeah, it follows the diagram. Maybe I should have shown you guys that to be more helpful. But remember, with the diagram, we had the structure of the main point. The main sentence was, let us run with endurance. And then we had 2 supporting points, since we have so great a cloud, and also laying aside every encumbrance. That gave us the motivation, the why to run. And then the how was given below, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. And then finally, we need to ask, is the outline directed? And yeah, it has the word your in it, so it gives the idea of it's directed towards the audience. It's not given in the form of a command, but it's still clearly intended to, that the hearer would understand that it's being directed towards him or her. All right. Okay. So again, these are the 5 things you're going to want to look for or think about when you're coming up with your outline. Is it consistent, again, with the homiletical idea? Is it parallel? Are each of the outline points parallel to each other? That is, are they structured similarly? Did they, so that they could be remembered? Are they concise? Meaning, are they short so they can be remembered? Again, accurate. It needs to follow the diagram of your passage, and then again direct it. All right. Questions on this one? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like in Chinese, the point about is it parallel? I mean, in the Chinese words, there's no.
That'd be hard to do.
Yeah, it's hard to do because they're all. I mean, the word is a character form. I mean, it's not in the English alphabets, right?
Yeah.
It's a different different word. So I'm not sure about Chin or Myanmar. I mean, the Burmese language. Can you do parallel? I mean, the words in parallel form. I'm not sure about that too.
Yes, in Burmese we do have parallel form.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What about, Joshua, words that sound similar?
Okay. Yeah, I think about like today's passage that I did from Jude 17 to 23. Well, there's a pretty good one. In English, you have remember. Yeah, the point from 17 to 19, right? Remember, remember the saying of the apostles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then 20 to 21, you have remain, right? Remain in the love of God.
Yeah.
Keep yourself in the, okay, you have I remember, remain, and then 22, 23, you have rescue, right? Rescue, yeah, rescue those who are doubting, those who are in the false teaching, and so on. So you have remember, remain, and rescue from 17 to 23 of June. But in Chinese, remember is okay, in Mandarin, right? Those who know Mandarin is 纪念, okay, 纪念. Then remain, Chinese is, yeah, 保守. So 纪念保守. And then rescue is 抢救, right? 纪念保守抢救. So it's, yeah, there's no parallelism at all. I mean, sound all different too. So
Well,
so that's
but then
one.
is there not a word in Mandarin that's similar in meaning to remember? I mean, yeah, obviously taking the English word and directly, translating it, you're not going to have that parallel idea, but are there not other words in Mandarin that you could use that may have similar meaning? But because you did that with English, right? Because here the command is remember, keep, and save. All right, so you chose other words in English that are similar in meaning, but start with the letter R. So could you not do that in Mandarin, where you choose words that are similar in meaning, but maybe are more closely matched to each other, like in sound or?
Yeah, I cannot find the similar sound. Yeah, it's a different language, because
Yeah,
they are all worded differently. So I don't know. How about those who know Mandarin, like Su Long or whoever, or Wu Wei, Jensen? Can y'all do parallelism in your Chinese class?
I think quite hard.
Quite hard, huh? Yeah, the Chinese language is quite different. Okay.
well, again, remember, the goal here is to be memorable, right? You want to do it in such a way that it can be remembered. So in Mandarin, then what might be, maybe parallelism wouldn't work. Is there some other way to make it memorable? That's the goal. I mean,
Yeah.
so it doesn't have to, obviously, yeah, languages are different. So some languages you can do certain things that you can't do in another language. I understand that. So the goal here, though, is making it memorable. So maybe there's a different way to do that in Mandarin. I don't know. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I know for English, one way to do that is, yeah, making the parallel statements with, words that sound similar or begin with the same letter or something like that. But I don't know. Maybe you could think about in Mandarin what would be a way to make the points memorable.
Yeah, for me, for example, here now, your motivation and your means is for me it's like easy to memorize, easy to capture into our heart. But when we try to translate into Burmese, a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
That even in my own language. So English is actually very hard, but sometimes it's simple because, for example, just now as Pastor Joshua said, remember rescue, and that the word make us easier understanding on memorizing. But in Burmese, when we try to translate into Burmese, long sentence, it becomes long sentence. And then, yeah, yeah, English is good, very good. They have multiple choices. That's why I
Uh,
think many people love Pastor John Begata because he is very smart in doing that way
yeah.
to, yeah, short and sharp, concise. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is one strength of Pastor John is he's able to do this effectively. And it helps us to remember, or at least to follow as we're listening to the sermon. You know, we can follow more easily when it sounds similar or it looks similar. So yeah, I think Joshua, you just gave us, that was a great example. Remember, right? Remain, reward, or rescue, sorry. Yeah, I was like, okay, we can all remember that just from, you just said it and you didn't repeat it several times, but we still can. So yeah, I don't know, in your languages, brothers, if you can think of a way, the goal is memorable. That's the goal. So I would be curious if you guys think about that, maybe let me know some ways that you think you can do it in your language. And it may be something very different, you know, maybe, but you know, we see that Hebrew poetry is often done where they will use words that sound similar. You know, so they use what's called assonance, which just means it sounds similar. So you'll see that a lot in Hebrew poetry. They'll use that words that sound the same in order to be memorable or draw attention. But maybe there's another approach in your particular language that you can do that with, because that's what we want. Again, is the idea of where we started. Is it directed? I mean, these homiletical idea points. Is it directed? Is it clear? Is it accurate? And is it memorable? All right. That's what you're after with both the homiletical idea and the outline. Now in the outline, I just you know, parallel and concise is just, those are two ways to make it memorable in English. But you know, maybe there's another approach in your language that can be effective in triggering people to remember and to be clear. I think it's also clarity is important. So clarity can be helped by coming up with a way that you say it that also can be remembered. So yeah, the remember, remain, reward. That also helps it be clear, because now I can see the three main idea or 3 points in the passage just from those 3 words. You guys have any thoughts? I'm curious now how you might be able to I had a similar discussion with some brothers in the Philippines, in the Visaya language or Cebuano language, that they also found some challenges with trying to express an English word in Visayan, because they say that you have to spend a lot of time explaining. So but they were able to come up with in their language sort of a similar idea of making parallel statements, though they were a little bit longer. But they didn't think about like the English word and then how to translate it. They just went from the text to their language, and rather than just try to figure out, just translate English, they just went from their own study of the passage in their original, in their language. What do you think, Joshua? You come up with any brilliant ideas for Mandarin?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Yeah, I'm sure there's a way to make it memorable. Whether it is through the sound of the word or through yeah, how you organize the points.
You normally preach in English, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, even for like diagramming, as I look at the Chinese text,
Yeah.
is tough because in Chinese language, I don't know whether they have participle and yeah, even some clear yeah, sentence structure. So it's tricky because it's a different grammar together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the same issue I encountered with the Filipino language, that they saw many challenges in diagramming. And that's why I think, honestly, guys, if you don't know Greek well, English is a good language to use for the diagram, because it does, the grammar is similar to Greek, and there are some very good English translations that follow the Greek text fairly well. I mean, nothing's perfect or exact, because you're going two different languages separated by, you know,
Yep.
a couple thousand years. But the English grammar has very similar features to the Greek. And so as you work through the English text, it would be a lot of the same kinds of things you'd be dealing with in the Greek text. So that is a good place to start.
Yeah.
You know, and then you'll have to figure out, okay, how do I go from there to, okay, if I'm preaching in Mandarin and we're using a Mandarin translation, yeah, there are some challenges there then, and how to bridge that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking about yeah, if I were to teach this class in Chinese, yeah, I have to figure out how to teach them about the Greek grammar, like participle. There's no participle in the Chinese language. I don't know how they, going to comprehend that concept. Even yeah, the verbs and the preposition, they're just yeah, it's just interesting. Yeah.
And that would be important, like in this passage, Hebrews, right? You have this participle here, laying aside.
That's right.
And it's important to understand that's a participle, because that tells you that this is not a main point. This is the main point here, right? And laying aside is a modifying idea. So yeah, I don't know how. I mean, maybe what you would have to do, you could teach me on this, I'm not sure, but as you're explaining it, maybe saying, in the original language, this is given in such a way that it's not a main idea, it's a supporting idea. I don't know, maybe you wouldn't use the word participle.
Yes.
You wouldn't get into that, but maybe just the effect of it. What does a participle do? Just explain that part. The way this is given to us in the original language of Greek is, and it's written in a way that it supports the main idea. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely you have to find out ways to explain it. And yeah, I mean, just looking at this text, Hebrews 12 in Chinese, yeah, there's no way you can identify the main verb in this text in Chinese. Because,
wow.
Yeah, there's no way you can see the verb there. I mean, like for us in Greek or in English, right? We can find out, yeah, the main imperative, the verb, the main verb is let us run, right? In an imperative form. But in the Chinese, no.
What
Yeah,
about,
there's no.
oh,
Yeah.
so how would you do that then? How could you explain from the passage so your hearers
Yeah.
could see it from the text?
Yeah.
Is
So
it-
so the
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, you have to use other words to explain it to them. Yeah, you have to say, like in the Greek, you can see, let us run with endurance. I mean, let us run is the main verb. Yeah, you have to add a lot of words to explain.
Mm.
Can I say a few things here? I think that, yeah, we've run into it here, of course, big time. Down in Singapore, it was all English, so it wasn't any consequence. We did have a Mandarin section, but I never encouraged them to do a correct translation. And when they could, they had their own meeting and their own, I suppose, worship service. But we got to really avoid getting technical or getting academic. That is really devastating, deadening. Again, I've learned a long time ago that you know, if you're going to have outlines, you better get it down on paper and get it handed out. You know, a lecture is the world's first, and if you're going to try to lecture your people on Sunday morning, you're just about wasting your time anyhow. You've got to get it up on PowerPoint. You've got to get it out on paper. I have a huge file of outlines of Singapore I did handed out, and I left myself real flexible because I didn't know who was going to be there, and how the what's the matter now?
Well, it's not working. You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, no, it's good.
Okay. That's all right. Yeah. Regardless, you know, it's your local situation. And the whole idea is communication. And that means, yeah, you better get some material in their hands. PowerPoints are excellent. We use PowerPoints all the time. We have, when I only preach on Friday and Saturday is all kids. And so we start out in the morning on an animal. And we talk about that and we make an application and we just kind of ease over into the lesson then. And I never allow myself to get, you know, I suppose limited to a outline or a text. You've got to have a plan, but you got to have about 4 or 5 different directions you're going to go depending on how the Lord leads and who's there and how they're responding. Now, it's a little bit hard on Zoom because you can't watch eyes. It's a little bit hard when you don't have them there, but you want to communicate and you want to meet needs. And of course, the Bible has an automatic and very beautiful outline to it already. I've given up on trying to copy people's outlines. I've just chucked that and just let the Bible, you know, outline itself. But of course, this has really been very helpful to me because I've learned a little bit about outlining, and I haven't been very skillful at that. So that's important. But yeah, don't let yourself get too technical or you'll put your people to sleep. I'm a farmer, so I have a rich heritage of agricultural illustrations, and the Bible is very agricultural. So I can, and then I lived in India a while, which is just like living in the Bible, you know, drawing water out of wells, sleeping on the rooftop and all that, you know, and the weddings, the funerals are very similar. And I think probably in Myanmar, it might be the same. But, you know, you've got to really be sensitive to what the needs are and who are listening. And then you got to keep your eye on if they're getting sleepy and you've got to do something, you got to tell a story or you got to quit, one or the other. So it's, you know, you've got to do your homework, or otherwise you put them to sleep right away, you know, and you don't want to do that. And of course, it's not about cash flow. You know, it's not about entertaining them. Nowadays, I get to the churches in the States and, oh, brother, 20-minute messages. How can you even get an introduction done in 20 minutes? I don't know how they ever do it. Yeah, then I did a little 2 years ago. We went, and there's a lot of churches I hadn't been in 25 years, and they give me 10 minutes to tell 25 years of a report. Well, no, I just turned it over to my wife. She's Chinese, and that was as good as I could do. But you have a lot of situations, and you really got to be flexible and ready to, I suppose, slide into the situation you've got, and you know, get a message across quick as to something that's needful. But yeah, this outline here in Hebrews 1 and 2, it's powerful. You could probably spend a whole year on this if you know, you've got all these therefores back at the bigger context of chapter 11 that you can draw from, and then you got Jesus, the author and finisher, which of course is the your conclusion or your thrust of what you're going to do, and you've got the whole scripture there, the whole life of Christ. So you know, this is fun. I find preaching fun. I find it very once in a while I'm really disappointed with myself. I think I really dumped it. You know, I think I really didn't communicate very well, but that's good because then you reevaluate again. And but anyhow, it's this Mandarin thing that they have to put it in their own language. You can't begin to think about coming over. But Greek is excellent because you got to know the original wordings of the words. You know, you got to know those original words, and you got to learn even though Greek doesn't have any much, Mandarin doesn't have much grammar. Yeah, well, you either got to go with English. Okay, go with it. You got to go with Mandarin. Go with Mandarin. The guys here do a chat box, and they are getting good at this. And we've got some little kids, ain't too bad. I tried to get my wife to do it the other day, and she about fainted because yeah, it's a gift. This business of translating, boy, it's a gift. And then to put it into characters, yet wow, you know. Anyway, yeah, I would encourage you know, getting outlines to hand out, getting sheets to hand out, study sheets, or something that keeps you on track and keeps them a little bit, I suppose, orientated to where you're going. And if you're lecturing, forget it. You're just, it's my wife really was a good teacher. And boy, she really hammered on lecturer. What a horrible approach that is. And yeah, boy, I tell you, you're going to have to be a real performer on Sunday morning if you're going to keep people awake for an hour. MacArthur is a genius. He's just, he's so full of knowledge. We don't even try to do it like he does. It takes me a month to preach what he does in one message. I used to gleam him and try to, you know, it's a challenge to get the kind of material he's got, but oh, it's all solid.
We all have the same experience, Dwayne. It's like, can't copy it, but learn from. But I think one thing that I learned from him the most was the clarity part, you know, and just,
yeah,
you know, the way he does it. Of course, he uses these alliterations and, you know,
it's excellent. Yeah.
But I think, and I think you're hitting on this too very well, that clarity is what's important here. And yeah, if you get into all the exegetical details and all the academic side of it, certainly that's important for accuracy, but you don't need to bring all of that to the message. You need to bring clarity. You have to be accurate, which means, you know, you and I have to put the work in to understand what the author's saying, but we don't dump all of that into our sermon, but we need to be clear, and we need to be able to show them from the text. And that is a huge challenge. Even Joshua, as you bring up for Mandarin, being able to do that. I don't know, Burmese, Philip, is it the same kind of thing? Do you have similar challenges or? What do you see as far as that?
Yes, same problem. I mean, so in English, diagramming is quite easy, but in Burmese and Kachin, we find same problem.
Hmm.
Right now, I am looking at the same text. That means Hebrews 12, 1 to 2. According to Burmese version, there are 3 independent clauses,
Ah.
3 imperatives, not just 1, 3. So very challenging. Yeah. So what during along during the period I'm learning from you, actually last Saturday I used the same text and I just explained in Burmese. Diagramming is very difficult, but if we look at English text, because many of our audience, though they are not fluent in speaking in English, at least they can read a little about English. So in English, this sentence is the main clause, and then we can build on.
Oh, okay.
So how about Zhao Li or Brother Tangian? How do you find reading Myanmar Bible or Chin Bible?
Yeah, to be honest, even though I am not very well in English, whenever I am doing my outline, I base on English because the flow, or I mean, the sentence itself is sometimes for me complicated. So it is, I mean, a little bit more easier to base English because now especially in our own dialect Bible, some are now doing very well, but we do not get the whole Bible. We only get the New Testament, and the
Mm.
former ones are a little bit complicated, and then the translation, the weakness of translation, I would say. So, but one we base, I mean, English, and also because whenever we learn, we are learning from English, right? So it's help us, and Kaptu also is actually, we are the same tribe. Our speaking is the same, but how would he would feel, I don't know. But for me, um, the way we're learning and the way we're doing is more, comfortable with English, but not Burmese and my own language. Yeah. Thank you. Anyway, thank you. Very helpful. But yeah, based on Burmese and based on my language, drawing diagram are very challenging. Still challenging.
Yeah, I think I've heard that from many many brothers around the world. Just some of the challenges of that. Unless the language is structured similar to Greek, then or even or the Latin languages, those can be diagrammed fairly easily. But yeah, like I was saying, in Tagalog, in Cebuano, some of the Filipino languages, they have the same challenges. So they just tell me, we study it in English, and then we come up with a sermon, and then we essentially preach in our language, but we base it on the English text and the English study. And then but yeah, there's a big challenge because you also don't want your people to lose confidence in their translation of the Bible either, right? So if you spend the whole time expressing all the mistakes in the Burmese translation or the Mandarin translation, then that doesn't help either, because now they're like, well, so you can't do that either. So yeah, you brothers face a large challenge in trying to help people see from the text what is actually, you know, an accurate understanding of the original author, because the translation may not do a good job of expressing that. So like you said, Philip, in Burmese, right, there's 3 imperatives. And in Chinese, Joshua, you said there's no verbs. So I don't know how you would, how do you express a command in Mandarin then? Is that, you know, I don't speak Mandarin. I only know a couple of phrases, but are there imperatives?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, how would you understand something to be a command?
Yeah, you have to almost like look at the context. Yeah, I mean, I just look at Hebrews 12, verse 1. Yeah, if you read the Chinese text, yeah, there's no way you can identify like what we did with the English, right? As you see, the main verb is let us run. Yeah, so that's about the Mandarin.
The analysis of this was that to form the what we call that okay, so it's a simple way to diagram Chinese. It's actually in different way. Yeah, there is a lot of verbs here from verse 1 to verse 2. Okay, but what is the key is not the what is it that's binding the main verse like what English does. Okay, we always lead by the mood. We what's it look we are looking for the what's it that's imperative first, because that's like this one okay, example. Okay, from that okay, you see, let us run with the patient here. Okay, this let us run is the main verb according to English, but in Mandarin it's actually all the what's it that's you have the what's it that's a first the verbs will be the first what is it that's a first what we call that 词 what is that okay, is the what's it the starter word for each clauses. Actually they all are clauses. Okay, from okay, lay aside everywhere, wait, okay, run with patient the race, okay, looking unto Jesus the author and finisher of our faith, looking, okay, and despise the shame. All are the what is it that's at the same level. There is no any participle. They all are the what is it that's verbs.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is actually under the if you need to find the which one is the main verse main what is it that's a cross, is actually the first one. Wherefore, seeing we also have a compassion of what's about with so great a crowd of witnesses. This one is the first. This one comes first.
Yeah, our problem is that most of our text and helps and everything is in English. And so there isn't anything in, there isn't much in Malay, there isn't much in Mandarin, there isn't much in Burmese, I'm sure. So you're stuck with the English if you're gonna study, but then you got to preach in your own language. So yeah, it takes special gifts. I tell you, it takes a special, a lot of homework,
Yeah.
a lot of homework involved.
In Chinese translation, we don't translate it in technically, because we
Yeah.
translate according their mood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and ultimately that's why it'd be most helpful if we knew Greek and Hebrew, right? I mean, then we can go. I mean, that's what we're after, but who, some of us, many of us don't have the time or the ability to study the original, to be experts. So that's the challenge. So I think at least the more I've studied Greek and English, I think I've found, and as I teach this course quite a bit, and of course basing on English, I really do have a high degree of confidence in the English translations. At least they've done a decent job of reflecting the original, because that's what we want at the end. We want the original. We don't want the English text. That's not, Paul didn't write in English, right? Isaiah didn't write in English. But it's like, well, how do we get to the original without, having taken years and years of studying Hebrew and Greek? And that's the challenge we face. I mean, Dwayne, you mentioned earlier the reliance on the Spirit. I mean, certainly we must have that, and we do our best with what we have in our study. But so I found that, at least as a bridge to the original author's world, English is a helpful bridge. It's not the best bridge. The best bridge is just knowing the original language, but we that's a challenge as well. So yeah, I pray for you guys a lot about that, just going into your particular language and how you can express these truths accurately and clearly, because that's our goal. We want to be accurate and clear. That's our job. And what that looks like and how you do that can be a significant challenge for you guys as you're expressing. So I really appreciate your guys' input, and this is really helpful to me to understand kind of the challenges you face with that. So yeah, as you come up with ideas on how to do that, share those with the rest of us, because that can help your brothers here knowing how to better communicate. Because again, accuracy and clarity, and applicability, needs to apply. I think Dwayne, you mentioned that as well, but and Joshua too. So as I think about and prepare messages, those are the three things on my mind. Is this accurate? Is it clear? And is it applicable? Is it directed to my hearers so they know what to do with it? So yeah, again, thank you. I appreciate that, all your input. And any other comments before I let you guys get to bed? Anybody else have any thoughts or comments? Suggestions? The more I think about the Tower of Babel, the more angry I get at those guys, right? If they had just not built the dumb thing and, not tried to defy God, we might all just speak the same language. We wouldn't have these problems. But those knuckleheads at the Tower of Babel, they had to build a tower to be like God. So now we have all these different languages, and, so it's, every time I read that chapter in Genesis, I get angry. It's like, but
and it makes this course very, very useful, very helpful for I think even for the Mandarin speaking.
Yeah, accuracy, clarity, and keep it simple, Uncle.
Yeah,
don't get complicated.
That's part of the clarity, is yeah.
I think that's clarity.
J.C. Ryle said he had a great article. I'll introduce that to you guys a little later, called "Simplicity in Preaching." Really, really good, short article. He was very good at being clear. Yeah, and he said, yeah, your goal is simplicity, because he too was a farmer, Dwayne, J.C. Ryle, and so
Amen.
he understood, like, you know, a lot of his hearers were farmers and guys that couldn't read, and so he's like, you got to be simple and clear. And if you're not helpful. You may understand what you're saying, but if they don't, you haven't helped them. So that's the idea. That's what we're getting at with all of this discussion today, is just clarity.
Yeah, you listen to MacArthur, and boy, when he gets into the Greek, he makes it very clear and very practical. It doesn't confuse you at all. Yeah, this is what you got to strive for, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about that. I don't know any Greek either, so that eliminates that problem for me.
Yeah. So, Joshua, did you finish your thought there?
Yeah. I was saying, yeah, this class is very, I think it will be very helpful for many even Mandarin speaking people, because yeah, they definitely need help to identify the main point of a passage. Because in the Chinese Bible, you just, it's hard to get the main point out. I mean, but I normally I share with them from the original text. This phrase here is the main point of the passage. So I have to show them that, so that they know, oh, okay, it's coming from the original text. So they will understand better. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people get that. You know, they understand that they're reading a translation, so they know it's not exactly the same as the original. And so if you just say, you know, hey, in the original, you know, Greek's a different language than what we speak, but in Greek, it's clear that the author is able to, in the way he says it, express the main point, and the main point is this, you know, statement here. I think people get that. You know, you don't have to get into, here we have a finite verb and here we have a participle that modifies the finite verb. And, you know, like Dwayne said, forget it. They're gonna go, yeah, bye. But you can, in a simple way, express the idea that, you know, because everybody knows the Bible wasn't written in Mandarin. It wasn't written in English. You know, it was written in Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic. So I think people would understand. You say, hey, in the original language in Greek, in this passage, the main focus is this statement, you know, and just say it. That's it. You don't have to get into, you know, this is a finite verb in the imperative mood that is in the second person plural, and you don't need to say that. You can just, you know, express the idea, and that's, I think, again, clarity. Accuracy is you knowing, you know, accuracy is you knowing, okay, I know from my English translation that I studied, this is the main verb. So I know that, and I know these are supporting statements, part phrases and clauses, etc. So as long as you know that, that's what's important. And now how you explain the passage, that's where, okay, the clarity comes in. You have to be accurate, but you don't have to bring all that accuracy into the message, but you do need to bring the clarity based upon your understanding of the text. So that's why I appreciated Ryle's little paper on simplicity, because that is a big challenge that many preachers do not pursue. They just aren't clear. A lot of guys they either just spit out the exegesis or they just ramble on whatever topics there. But we want to be focused on what the original author was focused on. But we want to do it in such a way that our hearers can understand and not get lost in all the details and technical stuff. That's hard to do. That's a real skill to be able to preach with clarity.
Now, do the brothers up in Burma have access to the nice pamphlets that MacArthur puts out on different subjects books and themes. He's got a lot of stuff. I enjoy them. I got a huge collection, and I have got most of my, I think most of my theology off of those. I collected a huge number in India when I was going back and forth. Of course, that's a long time ago, but yeah, your English is fair, and his English is pretty simple. And yeah, somewhere we've got to, you know, I suppose, get ourselves thinking, get ourselves challenged.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, some things to think about, guys. Appreciate the discussion. Gave me a lot of helpful insights too into the challenges you face. So I appreciate that. Pastor Philip, maybe if you have any final thoughts, go ahead, express those, and then if you could close us in prayer, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So as Pastor Joshua said, this class is very helpful and very beneficial to me and my friends here in Myanmar. Yes, we have to struggle a lot, but I think it is useful, effective, and fruitful. Thank you.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. So may I pray for us all? Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this class, for this fellowship, for this learning together as we come to in the presence of your grace. And we are so thankful to you and your servant and Pastor Tim. Bless and guide each and every one of us so that we can overcome the challenges of diagramming in our own language of study the Bible. We need your help. We need your grace. We need your guidance. And Lord, continue to bless us so that we are faithful to you and to study your word. I pray all these things in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, brothers. Look forward to
Thank you.
seeing you next week, and hope you have a blessed week. Get some rest and I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, if you have any thoughts about our discussion and anything that can be helpful for us and how to be clear and mention that, you know, give those thoughts to us next week or the next few weeks. That would be really helpful. Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, guys.
And all the best to Norman starting his new job
yes,
Monday.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
So we won't see him in class. He will be busy working.
Well, I think the class he took, you're going to be able to still be with us, aren't you? The work you took, Norman?
No, I have to work night shifts. I have to
Oh,
work
you're going
morning
to
and
work
night.
night shift.
But
okay.
I will be with you on video. I will watch you, but you can't watch me.
Or when you have your toilet break, you can sign in just for 5 minutes.